Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an aesthetic game to share with you from the grand final of the 2025 Esports World Cup. This is the first ever Esports World Cup event for chess. On the white end, Magnus Carlsen representing Team Liquid, playing against Alireza Firouzja, Team Falcons. Now, this is game one from what would end up being 8 games played between these two in the grand final. The win by Carlsen in this game, I believe, really set the stage for the rest of the match. He pulls off a very pretty move in this one, as you will soon see. Now, the format for this is rapid, 10 minutes each, no increment. So with such a format, you certainly do not want to get too far behind on the clock. You will get flagged. Now, opening-wise, what are we looking at? Catalan. The bishop on d6, not the most popular post, far more popular on e7. Okay, from d6 it is there, watching over e5, eventually an important supporter for an e5 break. Black continues with knight c6. 2 pieces now there supporting the e5 break. At the same time, the c pawn is obstructed, not going to be a contributor. Right away, at least. Here is a sign that things have maybe gone wrong for black. If you're playing in this way, you've obstructed the c-pawn and you're somehow not able to play e5 successfully, that right there is a sign something has gone wrong for black. You really do need to get in e5, primarily to open up a diagonal for this bishop. It needs to function in some way. And, all right, the rook is also not going to be complaining if it has a half-open file. Now, the follow-up is knight to c3. There has been, for a few moves now, a move that may tempt a lot of players, and that is this quick little jab thrown at the bishop, rocking it back. Why isn't this move played? A question to ask yourself before going with such a move: will I be able to maintain this pawn on c5? If the answer to that is no, you should probably shy away from the move altogether. Here's an example where this point is overtaken very quickly. Let's say the knight develops on c3 at this stage and b6 is there. Now what? What are you doing about the pressure on c5? If you have to take away from the center and allow your opponent to take towards the center, black is better in now 2 ways, structurally speaking. And the rook is saying, thanks for the half-open file. I didn't even have to do anything. So was it worthwhile to play c5? Well, if you get to this position here, the answer to that question, a firm no. All right, backing up here, we do not see this little punch. More development, knight c3, d takes c, queen a4, and sure enough, black is able to get in the e5 break. Follow up d5, knight b4, knight takes e5. Okay, bishop takes knight, queen takes knight is there. We have knight b takes d, knight takes c, knight takes knight. Carlsen's structure has been fractured on the queen side. All right, there's some pressure though on this strong bishop, finds a new square. Very good piece, immediately challenged. Queen e7 takes the you take me approach. Tension remains. Rook on a half-open file. Nice coordination on b7. The big difference currently with this position, the light square bishops. Very strong piece here on g2. Black can find it difficult to weather this mini storm, this little coordination on b7. From here we have c6, bishop exchange, queen b4. Black at this stage not interested in exchanging queens. This is the correct way to play it, I believe. We do have queen h5 eyeing up the h3 square. Black dreaming of bishop h3 idea, knight g4, light square bishop exchange, and checkmate on h2. Why is it important to play in this way and maintain queens? Well, if you exchange queens, First of all, you help out white structure. Looking deeper, there's going to be a minority attack idea with b5. One of these queenside pawns will be a target for white. White's minor pieces in this ending will be much more influential. The knight on a5, you don't even call it a knight if it's on a5. You call it pest. It has just a totally cramping effect. Black is going to be forced into a restricted state once the knight is on a5. It's very difficult to handle a knight on a5, and still this idea is in the air. These are the sort of things you would have to look to in such a position. This is not one where you say, okay, how can I attack the king? There's no attack on the king. Is there a vulnerable piece? Can I maybe trap a piece? None of that is going on. You look at the finer points in this position, the pawns, there's going to be a vulnerable pawn for black in such a position. So very easy to play for white. The structure on the king side, everything's going to be squeaky clean. Pawn on e3, and everything is really pointing to this minority attack on the queen side. So no queen exchange. What we have, queen h5, bishop f3, bishop g4, and queen takes b7. We go into a forceful line. The players up until this point playing pretty much like stockfish. Very high level play going on here. Knight e5, queen takes c3, knight takes c6, remains level. Pop quiz. What's your move here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, Firouzja targets the a pawn. Another pop quiz. What's your move? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, this is the aesthetic move I was referring to at the start of the video. You ready for this one? Knight b8. What's going on with knight to b8? Rooks are disconnected. Rook is now attacked. In the game, we have rook captures knight. We'll see how it plays out from there. Let me first point out what would have been a better move for black. Queen a3 is a blunder. A better move would be to produce a flight square or stay more central with the queen. Watch over, target the a pawn from c4 rather than a3. A difference between these two squares is that if white follows up with knight b3 in this position, there's queen d5 or e4. You have the support of the knight, and the queen defends the rook. All right, how it plays out in this one, after queen a3, knight b8, black can take on b8 once. And that's what we see. Rook takes knight, but you cannot take twice. From here, we have queen takes a2. If you take the queen, this is where you see the problem of the back rank, the issue with not having a flight square. Black would be forced to block with the queen. You win the queen back, and white goes on to win. Up the exchange, mop up a pawn, and the knight's nightmare, a passed rook pawn. Black does not survive this. All right, how it plays out in this one, we see after queen captures on b8, queen takes a2. Carlsen centralizes his queen. Now a flight square is produced, but it's too late. Carlsen is a simplifying machine. Do not blink. There go a pair of rooks, and there go the queens through this fork. From here, it's just a matter of technique. So let's see the conversion. The rook scoops up the pawn, rook versus knight ending. There are a few instructive moments to touch on in this ending. So first of all, this little baby move in general, important to stay flexible. Do not create any unnecessary weaknesses. Don't let it become too static. You don't want to maybe go with something like h4 and f4 and create a hole on g4. Maybe the knight is on h6, holding up a couple pawn advances. Stay flexible. h3 is healthy. Cut out a square. Slow, steady progress can be made. Let's see what that looks like in this game. Rook check. King improves. Some time is going to be taken out eventually by Carlsen to stabilize the king post. We see just that. No knight check on e4. Okay, the f-pawn now fulfills that role. The rook can go elsewhere. And after king g7, rook to a6, the knight now no longer has access to its favorite square. So what in the world is it supposed to do? Throws a jab on the rook. Rook c6, knight back to e8. Black is not making progress. Follow up f4. And that right there is the final move of this game. Firouzja resigns. Now, if this game continued, we're going to be seeing this f5 break. And black isn't really going to have a great answer to it. So, what options does black have here if the game continued? First of all, if you're moving the f-pawn, you're just inviting the king deeper into your camp. You're not helping yourself by playing that way. Let's say the king goes back. You could play f5 straight away. And if this pawn is allowed to get to f6, you're dead. So, for instance, let's say the king goes here in this position. You keep the structure as is. There's f6, and regardless of where the king goes, this rook is playing here next. So let's say the king goes here. We have a pin. Eventually, you're going to have to play king to g8, and the knight will fall. You're going to run out of moves soon. You only have the g and h pawn to move at this point if you don't want to move the king. So that's not going to work out. If you allow this pawn to get to f6, it's too good for white. So let's say in response to f5 you take. Well, now the king can go over here and scoop up this pawn. That's going to be winning. One final note. I came across an instructive king and pawn ending. So rather than this f5 move, you could go straight in for this idea and give the exchange right back and establish this king on f6. This here is winning for white. I want to show you how exactly you would do just that. Following up with f5, capture on f5, and believe it or not, white has to be very accurate in this position. There is only one winning move, and it would be h4. And only then collect this pawn and then this pawn. It's important to have the h pawn be a leader and not allow this g pawn to be exchanged for this f pawn. If you capture an f5 in this position, black's draw would be with h4. If you take, okay, the passed rook pawns are nothing. Black will draw that easily, throwing the king in the corner. And the idea here is that if you play g4, black will be able to draw this in the following way. Very instructive. King g6, and now what? What do? You have to go in reverse with the king. If you go forward with a pawn, these pawns get exchanged, and it's going to be a drawn king and pawn ending. And if you retreat, here's the only draw, a timely f5. Yet again, we're looking at a draw. Certainly, if you capture like this guy is not going to be good enough to win. And if white tries king f4, chop, chop, still not going to be good enough to win. Here is white. The king in these situations wants to play the leader role and be out in front of this pawn, and he's not able to establish such a post. This is a draw. So there's plenty of ways to win this ending at this level. These guys know all these little details, but yeah, just a few instructive points I stumbled upon with this ending. F4, final move here. Anyhow, your thoughts with this one. Feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.